Hi, welcome to the Sifu Mimi Chan Show. Thanks for joining the conversation. Welcome to another Miosk episode. Here we dive into the intricate web of human connections and the spaces we share. Today we are ranting a bit, how we share not just physical space, but responsibilities, experiences, and the air we breathe. Join another fun journey through the joys and challenges of family travel, the cherished moments spent together, and the irreplaceable value of quality time. We'll also be exploring the fascinating world of the Kung Fu family, in particular, Wall Lam. This isn't just about martial arts, it's about a tight-knit community bound by tradition, respect, and mutual growth. Join Oscar and I as we reflect on what it means to share our world with others, appreciate the beauty of travel and family bonds, and delve into the extraordinary culture of Kung Fu families. As usual, there are always some laughs and ranting. I've been enjoying these conversations and hope you have too. If you have, please rate my podcast on your platform of choice and share it with others. If you would like to support with a donation to help keep this podcast going and support the work I do, you can become a patron of the show by visiting my website or patreon.com/SifuMimiChan. You'll also get access to extra blog posts and videos, so check it out today. For comments or suggestions, reach out on social media at SifuMimiChan. Now, on with the show. Hello, Oscar.
Hello, Mimi.
I think we both still have a little bit of raspiness to our voice.
I don't notice it.
Really?
No, do you notice it on me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I call it Oscar's sexy voice. I think listeners, that have gone way back with us might recognize this.
Maybe I'm just dehydrated.
Okay, so I was hoping to get a bunch of new podcasts out in May because it is AAPI Heritage Month with you, which you love bringing up all the time. You bring it up all the time.
Yeah, I think it's something that people should be reminded of.
And it is also Mental Health Awareness Month. And last year I was great because I had two podcasts where I doubled up and I had mental health specialists that were of AAPI descent, but also addressing the AAPI community. I'm gonna just kind of link those for you all in this podcast so you can look back in case you missed that last year. Because this year we were kind of, why did they say, I guess they say on the road because you're traveling on the road, but we were really like in the air, in the sea, on the tracks, and on the road in the last several weeks. And we are recording this between yet another trip, and it's been a little bit hectic.
It has been because the disruption isn't just with our schedules, but with our health.
So for my Patreons, I posted a in-depth blog about the last trip we took, and if you are a Patreon, you can get that access. So quick plug for that. But it's been a first world and definitely position of privilege complaint to have where, because we're traveling so much, it's causing the decline of our health. Basically, the last trip we went on, which was, the last trip. So in April, we went to Northern Europe where we were on a cruise ship. We got to see Norway, some amazing fjords. We went to Scotland. We also ended up in Germany where we taught my grad students. Very exciting. And then when we got back, we had about a week and a half, and then we jumped on another boat with the Chan fam and did a trip there. We have 5 or 6 day turnaround here back in Orlando, where we are going to get on a flight over to the west side. So we're trying to do the whole globe here, and we are going to Los Angeles and Hawaii, which we'll talk about in a bit. But I thought that we could basically apologize to our listeners because I haven't been getting podcasts out on time, but also give the very lame excuse of this is our travel schedule and why it's been so hard to get some recordings done. And a few of the ones I had actually booked appointments with have fallen through for a multitude of reasons. But let's start with the Norway trip. We actually have been to Oslo before. We've been to Norway, but we hadn't gone a little bit further up into the fjords. And we did some really cool things like hiking. Well, I call it hiking. Someone of a more experienced hiking ability level would probably call it a nature walk.
Right. It was a nice walk or a hike. I think it doesn't matter. The interesting thing with Norway, or actually with everything on that trip, was that every place that we went, everyone, all of the locals said, "Oh, you're really lucky. The weather's really great today. It's been pretty rainy for the past 2 weeks." And then we went to the next place, and they said the same thing. So it was sort of like the good weather was preceding us by a day, and we were lucky the entire time.
Yeah, I remember when we were in Edinburgh doing our whiskey tasting. Of course, had to do that. The waiter told us. It was what, by then maybe like May 3rd or something. They're like, wow, it's really amazing because you guys it was about what, 60 degrees maybe?
Yeah, and
Fahrenheit, and it was sunny and it was gorgeous. It was still, maybe 50s. It may have been in the 50s. And he said to us, yeah, well, I haven't seen the sun since January, so you guys really got lucky. And I'm not even going to try to do the very local, fun Scottish accent, but we got the whole feeling of it. But basically not seeing the sun since January, and literally that one day we were there was really great. So that did kind of set the tone. So weather-wise, super fortunate. I kind of need to do a vent. So because my BFF Rucka has been too busy, our schedules have not matched up in alignment, and I've been too busy. We haven't had a good Rucka rant, and so I've been doing my blog post as Mimi's Musings, but basically the reason our health suffered isn't actually, I think, the travel and the going. I mean, we've been pretty safe. We mask, we take our vitamins and all of that, but on the cruise ship, which I know there's a bunch of people who don't like cruise ships, but they allowed smoking in the casino, which on our ship, for those of you watching this online, basically you have the boat, and then like right in the middle of the boat, in the middle of everything is the casino. And then around that, everything is open. So there were all like open lounges, open restaurants, open sitting places across like 3 or 4 floors. And so as one knows, with the smoking in the casino, it just goes everywhere. And my lungs and my sinuses they just can't take it. And so even though I was masking up, we wanted to go and enjoy the music that was there nightly. And I guess this is a bit of a rant on like shared airspace, and that, I don't know, should this really be allowed? Is this like 2024? One of our friends that went with us said, this is 2024. How can we have smoking inside where it can affect so many people? And maybe I'm just really grumpy because this is now 4 weeks and I'm still having asthma from it, and I'm still coughing. And as a result, on the flight home, my sinuses basically felt like my head was imploding and I was going to die. But I made it, thank goodness for modern medicine. But because of that, I think my immune system was down. I definitely think I caught something on top of it, which perhaps I gave to you, or maybe you got it from that person on the plane. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know the where things spread or whatnot, but as far as air quality, I agree with you. In shared spaces, there should be incentives or restrictions on what should be allowed. So if you're sharing space with people, then that space shouldn't be allowed to be contaminated with smoke. That's of course our opinion as non-smokers, but I would equate it to if you're not feeling well and you're just allowed to sneeze everywhere, right? Mm-hmm. It's the same. It's kind of like just a sense of respect. But just like anything else, these things are incentivized by money. So if you're gambling and you're spending money and you're smoking, a cruise ship who is probably making money from the gambling is not going to tell the smoking person to stop. Unfortunately, we get to, you're highly allergic to ash and to smoke. But I'm not sure what can be done about it other than we have to be the ones to avoid it. I'm definitely not going to be writing letters to cruise ships about smoke. It's just not my style. Or I'm not going to write to my congressman about air quality. I'll just try to avoid it.
Yeah, and so now the second boat we went on, online it said no smoking indoors, absolutely not. There's outdoor areas, specified outdoor areas, right? And it was interesting because inside the casino on this second ship, where online it said we do not have any smoking indoors, it said you can only smoke if you're actively playing at the casino. And so, yes, I think the incentive of smoking being allowed for gamblers while they're on the ship is definitely agreed, like money-making thing. And I don't fault them. I would just say maybe then they should position and build their ships in a way of which, there's one side that has that with closed doors. Because when you go to Japan, we came back from Japan, and I think we did a podcast on it, on this utopia of a country that, in terms of how they operate as a society with respect for one another, is so different than anywhere we've ever been, really, right? Like in this utopia of a place, they have a smoking section, and it is abided by. I mean, they don't even allow you to eat in certain places, like on the street. There's like no street eating in certain areas because it's just disrespectful. So, but they're literally like little booths or little areas, and everyone's contained to them. So the shared space concept of smoking or whatever the case may be, I think is really respected there. I wonder, is this cultural, or like you said, is this just motivated by money and the business side of things? Because on a ship, for sure, I think it's money.
Yeah. So this brings me to this kind of question of the more Eastern side of being brought up and the Western side, which I was brought up in the Western side, where it's more, or Western civilization, which is all catered towards the person, and like, oh, you're born with this destiny, and or you have all of this potential to do all of these great things. And on the Eastern philosophy is more of a culture of honoring and honoring your family, and you're part of a collective and a part of a group. The only thing that's hard for me to understand there is in Japan that was found, and maybe one of the countries with the highest honor systems ever in the history of the world. But another Eastern civilization, the Chinese, no offense, I hope this doesn't offend, but the mainland Chinese, I think, are the worst tourists I've ever seen.
I was
ever.
actually just going to say, like, you're saying Eastern, but at the same time, I think, I'm sure there's monetary motivation here, but I think this is where the cultural part comes in, because when you're with a billion other people, all the pleasantries go out the window. They don't hold doors for each other. They spit everywhere. So this was another thing I was going to say. So like, in China, there's a lot of spitting. I notice this, like literally on the street, or we've even seen it in restaurants, like on the ground in the restaurant. I mean, granted, the restaurants were usually like concrete floor type of places. We weren't in like a 5-star hotel or something, but the culture is so different. And I wonder, like, is that cultural or is that whatever? But literally, we're in a restaurant where it says no smoking, and people are smoking right next to that sign in China, and they just don't care. So I don't think there's an offense. I think that is definitively where I think maybe there's just too many people, but it's so frustrating to be around. And then people who leave their culture and place, Americans included, then go to other places and just expect their culture to be able to be accepted, or acceptable rather, right? So like, if the Chinese think spitting on the street is fine and smoking everywhere is fine, that doesn't mean then they should go to other places and expect that. Like, I don't expect to show up in other countries and everyone should have to speak English because I speak English, right? I think we do our best. A lot of people may know this about me. My one superpower I wish I had isn't even just like I think one that's attainable, right, is to be a polyglot. Like, I would love to be able to communicate, waiting for that chip or whatever so that I can speak all the languages, because I just find it fascinating. I find language fascinating, but I think we should be adapting to where we go. And I feel like mainland Chinese do not do that. I think they expect everybody, and neither do Americans. So when you say worst tourists, I think we all have that tendency. But in general, we've been around some pretty rough tourists where they don't respect the space, they don't respect the culture that is there, and they just think everything revolves around them. And I think you're right. Mainland China tends to do that. I think one, they're just in a position of billions of people, so fine at home. But to me, I feel like, well, if you then go visit other places, you need to have respect for those places and
same
spaces.
thing we said when, like, to take the smoking, for example, like if you go to Tokyo, there's an area where people are smoking, and then you see that and you're not a smoker and you're like, all right, hey, they're smoking, enjoy your
fine.
smoke, I'm just not going to go in that area.
Yeah.
And then when you go to some place like, let's say, a ship or a contained moving city, you go outside to enjoy like this amazing Caribbean fresh air, and then there's a smoking section on the ship, and you avoid that. The problem is when the person who's smoking outside then just starts walking around the ship outside.
Right.
And, you know, it's an inconvenience when it's just like a second that walks by, but it can be detrimental to your health.
Right, it's detrimental to me, to my mom, to my, there's a lot of other people we travel with that have severe reactions.
Right.
And so I think, I don't know, it's interesting because it's like, hey, you smoke if you want, you drink if you want, you do what you want, you gamble if you want. This isn't an episode about like, this is your brain on drugs. Like, I think people have the right to do what they want with their bodies, but at the same time, if it affects others around them, I think that's where it becomes like a societal thing to where we need to respect one another's shared space and air. I think air is included in this shared space. And you're right, we were trying to do Tai Chi on the deck, and there was a side of the ship that was for smoking. And if it was contained to that, being outdoors, I wouldn't have known it, but literally everywhere we went outside, everyone was smoking everywhere because they just presumed outside meant smoking.
Right.
And I think that's where, if that's what you choose to do, then you should abide by the rules. But I'm a big rule follower. Like, I want the rules. I want everyone to abide.
You're
and that's
a big rule follower most of the time.
Right. What I mean is I want everyone to be in alignment. And so when other people break the rules, then I'm like, well, then I need to break the rules because I need to like avoid the situation. But yes.
What I mean is all of us,
we all break rules.
We all break rules, and we all have our own way of explaining that away.
Right.
This is my reason why doing it. I totally know that the person who's smoking is generally not being an asshole and saying, hey, I'm going to smoke. And it's just more of like, it's okay. It's not that big of a deal. Mm-hmm. They're explaining the reasons why, not realizing these down effects of like, oh, now someone has a 4-week asthma.
Yeah,
like this
more.
This progression of sinus infections and coughing and whatnot.
So this is obviously going to tangent even deeper down the rabbit hole. So weird because we never do this kind of thing. But that becomes then like cause and effect, right? So every action has a reaction. And then so everything we do, not just the shared space and air, but all the actions that we take have a consequence we don't know about, right? And we could go completely bananas, like down that sliding door thing, like, oh, if I had made a left turn, or oh, if, and I think as humans, we just have to do the best we can to make good decisions. But I wonder if, because of my nature and who I am, like this is the kind of thing that will make me go a little bit crazy, down the rabbit hole of, oh my gosh, if I do this, is this going to cause like famine in other countries or something? Not that I think I have that much power, but
yeah, I don't think that way, I guess. But I guess my main point is, yes, what you do does have reactions, but almost always I can easily justify my actions, and I do notice that about other people. So I may sound like I'm being understanding, like, well, that person was smoking, they didn't mean to, but I also go down like this negative rabbit hole of like, well, okay, Mimi's sick, all right, and then okay, so now she's gonna die from this disease. That's kind of where I go. So when you got sick, and I was like, oh, this is caused from smoking. I always think this. I'm like, all right, well, when she dies from this, I know this sounds horrible. When she dies from this, I guess I'm just going to have to go and assassinate every smoker. Okay. Like that's kind of where my mind
becomes
goes.
your vendetta.
Yeah,
You
this
are
kind of
now
vendetta,
like
yeah.
the anti.
But I know that's not what I
superhero.
would do.
Right, and you don't
'cause
even
I would
feel
get
that
caught
way, right?
eventually,
Because
yeah.
we all. Well, also because it's not even about that, right? I think it's about we all do it, whether it's smoking or something else. We all do it. We don't realize how we affect other people.
We don't, because what I jokingly just did was I made myself a hero in my own story, which is what we all do, which we talk about all the time. So that's the point I guess I'm trying to make is this affects me, and I can't believe that you're disrespecting my space. And then in the reverse, whoever this person who's smoking is like, it's not that big of a deal. I'm, living my life, and they're the hero of their own story. It's sort of like whenever we go and watch a play or a musical or anything like that, and the main character, and you've got a crowd of like, I don't know, let's say a stadium can fit 1,000 people or something, and 1,000 people are watching, and then on the stage, there's a cast of 50 people, but then there's one person who's a star. We all think that we're the star, but really we're probably just one of the watchers. Like no one's really the star. But that's what I mean is like we can just always explain away, and I think venting is fine, and trying to find a way that we can all live better together is all good. I don't know. I don't know what my thoughts are on this hope that that's actually going to happen. So I'm okay with just.
I mean, because it's chaos. It's just chaos.
So it's okay. I think it's okay to complain. You're the type of person who takes action and tries to make change, and I may not be that person.
So, speaking of, I had mentioned we would kind of talk a little bit about our travels and everything, but always love connection with Wallam family. I think it's something that we are always in just such a unique, privileged position to be able to connect around the world with different people. And so we did end up, doing a little vacationing and then doing a little work, kind of the routine for us. But we end up in Germany teaching in Münster, which is a lovely, lovely town that we were fortunate we've been to before. But just kind of that feeling of being around family that is extended through this amazing thing we call Wallam Kung Fu and Tai Chi, and just being able to feel appreciated for the teachings that we're carrying on and the connectivity to another culture outside of the culture, right? So we've got the Kung Fu culture, the Chinese culture, the Wallam culture, America Wallam, and then now having this beautiful thing being taught, in Germany too. It's super cool. And it's super cool to see their respect for the teachings and excitement. So I did a Kung Fu seminar, and you and a bunch of the other Wallam guys came along from the US, and we got to teach together. And then also I did a lecture on kind of a philosophy of our teachings. And it was so cool because, granted, us Americans usually like one language, but they understood everything, right? It wasn't even about the English and the German, and it was kind of about the Kung Fu language. Mm-hmm. And I loved that, maybe because I want to be a polyglot, that we were speaking the same language, even though English was their second language. A lot of them can read it, but don't necessarily like speak it or listen all the time. And there wasn't a ton of need for the translator who was there to be helpful. It was really cool to be able to be connected to non-English, native English speakers, but still feel like they completely understood you. Yeah. I think that's a unique feeling, to feel so understood in a space where you're overcoming a barrier like language.
Right. I think that's something to do with community. So there's the martial arts community, which is a large community. So there's the martial arts community we're a big part of. There's the Wallam, which is inside of that community, and so we all share that language, and the students who were there, you could tell, shared the values. So it makes it easy to communicate, because it's almost like we're all preaching to the choir. But the cool thing is that whenever you hear something that you believe in from someone else, it gives you a different perspective. It gives you a different insight. It's a way to kind of to go deeper. So there's what's this saying that says, as my knowledge grows, so does the perimeter of my ignorance. So it's sort of like we all are agreeing with stuff, but then there's little things that we find are like, oh, that's a really good point, like a good take from the way that you're seeing this thing done. It could be even something as minute as an application of a martial art move to an understanding of a philosophy of something that was spoken, to this is how we should treat each other in this space, so it's just all of that stuff is really cool, especially when you're around people who have a similar end goal, but from different cultures, different languages. So it's a fun experience to have. I think people who are maybe religious, right? And like, let's say a Catholic who then goes to Italy, they kind of feel, they go, oh, look at all these cathedrals. They kind of have feelings like that. Or a Muslim person who goes to like a different mosque in a different country. Or I think that's not that to say that Kung Fu is religious, but there's something that connects people in a similar way, in a kind of like a spiritual way. So,
yeah. And so that takes us to, I think I really gave my last bit of energy at that seminar and the lecture, and I was just like out for the count after that. And when we got home, flipped now to the Caribbean, which we rarely really get off the boat, but we were able to connect with family down in Jamaica. This trip, I kind of teased, but there's some truth to it, and everyone listening will think, wow, cuckoo could choose. But we literally took this trip because my mom needed to have her mangoes during mango season in Jamaica. And so we get on a boat so that we can get all the way down so my cousin can bring us these mangoes. And they were delicious, to be fair.
The mangoes were delicious.
It was a bit of a trek to get mangoes, and this is how crazy Jamaicans are, because there were other Jamaicans on the trip that also jumped on the ship for the same reason. They got off the boat also to meet up with family to get mangoes. So we go on this trip, and as much as it's in the middle of all of our plans that we had already done for our work play life, it's always nice to have a Chan Fam trip, because we used to do these 3 to 4 week vacation retreats where we would train every day and have time in the ocean. And now that my parents are a bit older, we realize 7 days is the max. It's the sweet spot for getting away, but then they're ready to get back to routine. My dad wants to be home. He hasn't baisan, he hasn't done the incense, and he's just really needs that routine. And so it was still really nice because we also had Wallam family with us from other places, right? We had our Boston and Tennessee seafoods, and we had just people kind of come together. We had some moments of Tai Chi and Kung Fu training where there's that synergy and just that kind of special Wallam only thing where you just get together and work out, and it's really unique. And so that happened this past week, and seeing my parents both being able to kind of be in that environment's always really special, and we were able to do that. So we got our mangoes and we did that trip. We don't normally, but since our quote unquote the kids were with us, we had some kids with us that were like, let's go to the ocean and let's do a snorkel thing. And Cozumel, no offense to Cozumel or Mexico or any of this, but we usually don't get off the boat because we've been there about a zillion times, and we're not interested in Hard Rock Cozumel or getting another
Senior Frogs.
Senior Frogs. It's not Carlos and Charlie. We're not interested in any of these things. Jimmy Buffett's, whatever. We don't need to get off the boat for a margarita or any of those things. We don't need any of the vendor wares. We usually just kind of sit on the boat, relax, look at the ocean. But we thought, let's see what the ocean looks like. I enjoy snorkeling and seeing marine life. Oscar's lukewarm to it.
I think the two things that I'm really enjoy are food and you, and then almost everything else I'm pretty ambivalent. But I think here's the main point actually that I do want to, from everything that you just said, is don't be like me, which is a little bit of a curmudgeon when opportunities present themselves. I almost always, sometimes jokingly, sometimes seriously, go, oh, seriously, we got to do this thing. But if you open yourself to an experience with a good attitude, you almost almost always will really enjoy it. It can be something as simple as sitting in a local, small, tiny resort with your cousin, just, staring at a pool and looking at the palm trees and talking and just being there and
eating mangoes.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't care about the mangoes.
I know.
was just going to say, it doesn't matter.
But they were good.
They were good. I loved the oxtail that we had at that restaurant.
Right. I mean, me too.
And here's what's crazy.
Oxtail.
To me, seeing your cousin and his son, who are just really cool people, very attentive, that was the best part.
Yeah.
Sitting there and talking to them was the best part. The second best part was the oxtail, which I didn't even know I was going to get.
And, well, I knew.
And then...
And to give everyone kind of an overview is, I had told you, yes, we're getting off the boat. You were prepared for this. You knew we were going to have to do it. And you were fine. But then I said, we're going to eat Jamaican food. And you know how much I love to have Jamaican food. When I'm in Jamaica, I'm excited. And you're like, it's probably not even going to be that good.
Yeah, because that's my go-to answer for everything. It's, I don't know, you can look at it as negative or whatnot, but just like with anything else, this is, again, just me. I also just let things roll off. So I don't really harbor anything. I may say, the food's not going to be so good. As soon as I take a bite, I was like, I was wrong. This food is amazing. And I really enjoyed it. But I would say, the whole purpose of this trip, I don't know, I wouldn't even put it in the top 10 reasons of being in Jamaica. And let alone the whole trip is just not, it was great, but I've been trying to be more present with any situation I am when I'm interacting with people, or even if in a new environment that I'm not used to. And hell, even when we're in a place that I'm used to, I'm just trying to be more present with that, only because of the constant reminders we get of how short life is. So there's a gentleman who celebrated maybe his 81st or 82nd birthday there, and was saying that he set himself up to retire at 56 because when he turned 50, or he was around 50 years old, in 1 year, 7 of his friends and family died. Boom, 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 boom. All these people who are really hardworking. And we are always getting constantly reminded by, how short life is. So I'll go back to what I said earlier, which is if you're like me and usually have a negative first reaction to things, or I don't like change, I'm not, something, open yourself up to something. And if you're going to do it anyway, you might as well have a good attitude, because it'll make everything so much more pleasant. And the memory of it, all of it, the experience, everything will be.
Yeah. So one of the reasons we tell people to travel, and maybe even if travel's not your thing, do your staycations or whatever it may be, but you get to plan the travel, which you're excited about. Then you get to experience it. And then like what we're doing now, you get to remember it and talk about it. And
lengthens your life
because you get to relive these experiences. And so we ended up on the boat. I chartered a boat. We have a local there that we've known since I was a teenager, because I've been snorkeling there since I was like 12. And anyway, helped us hook up with a really cool little boat ride. It's a tiny boat, but we went out onto a sandbar where there were just stingrays that were kind of floating around. We had ceviche and guacamole that the captain made from scratch. It took him 30 minutes. It was legitimately from scratch with love. And they put it on a big lifesaver thing, and we were able to eat right there in the ocean, and still have a very responsible cleanup. And they said the stingrays eat any little food that falls, but we made sure there was no debris. But it was just this really cool moment with some of our Kung Fu family that I didn't expect to have, because I wasn't still feeling too good and I wasn't sure I was going to do the water thing. But same thing. They said, the ocean is so clear today. There's no seaweed. The sun is so in a way that you could see straight to the bottom. Tina came on the boat with us, who never comes on these type of excursions. She was able to look into the ocean when we were snorkeling and see the starfish straight to the ground, several meters down into the ground, because it was so clear. And she got to experience this. And then we lifted her off the boat into the sandbar, because it was only waist high. Well, waist high for us, chin high. She had her little rafter, but she got to experience that with us. And I think that was really special, because we never get off the boat in Cozumel. And that was such a cool memory. Just the ocean, the sun, the people we were with, and eating this really, simple but delicious food with all of us in the middle of the sandbar. And it was super neat. And it wasn't really crowded with tourists or anything too. So it was just something we normally wouldn't do, because we go, oh, we're not getting off the boat. Let's just sit and relax. And we did it. And even I was a little resistant to, okay, should we do anything or not? But I wanted to spend time with the people that were on board, and it ended up being so nice.
Right. Which was, I think that always happens, right? So I think there was one time years ago we got off at St. Martin's, and we were just like, oh, let's walk around St. Martin's. It's fine. And then you looked out at the ocean. You're like, all right, I'm going in the water. Just went in there in your underwear, and I was like, all right, me too. And we just jumped in the water, and it was, that's like one of the most memorable parts of that entire that trip. I don't remember anything else except for that, right? So, you can be like me if you want and be a little bit of a curmudgeon, but be flexible. That once you're experienced something, just be open to accepting. Like, hey, it's a short life, so you might as well enjoy it, right?
Yeah, and we're so fortunate that we get to enjoy it in the way that we do. And so now we are off onto our next journey and adventure to hang out with some amazing humans in Los Angeles and Hawaii. Hope to have some live podcasts with new guests. Not that the Miosk episodes aren't everyone's favorite hit podcast episodes, but
I know for sure there's one person who's told me they like it.
I think more than one. I've had one, so that's two.
Two people.
but we will be, catching up with some friends. Shout out to my Dr. Mark Chang, who's been on this podcast, but also is going to take really good care of us. Going to have some amazing food. Hopefully get some podcasts in. And then we hop over to Hawaii, where we will be at our second in-person Kauai Comic Con. Excited for that because love Hawaii and Kauai, and it's going to be really great. It's a really small island compared to the others, and it's one of those that, my friend Erin started this so that community could have a Comic Con. They often, he said, don't have the funds to even island hop and go to the bigger islands, and so they've never experienced it. And so he started this a few years ago, and this is the second in person. We did one virtual with him, and we're really excited to be back there. And for those of you that tuned in last year to the episode on Ronald Zambrano, he was one of the Lahaina fire victims. We had this just heart-wrenching story, and we'll catch up with him. But I wanted to also go back to Maui, go to Maui for the first time. And he said, we need tourists, we need economy boost, we need all of these things. And there's this really cool opportunity for voluntourism. And hopefully, if all the stars aligned, we'll be working with some of the Lahaina fire victims as well as some of the other local communities there. So I will talk about that adventure when we get back. And we're so excited to be able to experience new things. And Oscar's really excited about it, right?
I am. I'm opening myself to the great opportunities that will be presented with all of these trips. Yeah. I guess what's funny is we were traveling this much, and there were times in the past where we would stress about, well, what's going to happen with our businesses here. And luckily we don't have it perfected yet by any means, but we've put systems in place where like things will continue running, and we're able to enjoy it and leave and still touch base, but not feel like we need to be connected 24/7 when we're gone, which allows you to then enjoy the time that you're away. But it's a lesson, I think, for anyone who is a very hard worker and has been, putting in the work, is that you work hard, but you also try to play hard. But that you do have to take some planning into it and realize that if you 5 minutes can save you an hour, or something like that. 15 minutes could save you half of a day of work. So just take a little bit of time, plan it ahead, and then when you're away, enjoy yourself. So I enjoy myself all the time. I always say, like, I talk to my mom once a day, and she always starts, "Hi, how are you doing?" And my answer almost always like, "I'm doing great. My life is awesome." That's usually my answer. And even when I wasn't feeling well, I was like, "Yeah, still, my life is pretty awesome." So yeah, looking forward to all of the things that are going to be happening.
As am I. And hopefully breathing some fresh Hawaii air.
You know what? When we went in 2021, I don't remember. When did we go?
I think it was pre-COVID.
2019.
Yeah,
when we went in 2019, because we flew directly to Hawaii and we had that jet lag, we would wake up before sunrise and hang out at the beach for like 2 hours. Sunrise would come up, we'd get a little warm, we'd jump in the water, and then, we'd go back to the room, shower, and then start the day. I was like, this is amazing.
Unfortunately, now Hawaii's like the last stop because we're supposed to be in Maui, which I was telling you, and I can't remember the name of it. I'm going to apologize to all the Hawaiians, but there's a mountain where you can watch the sunrise over the mountain, which is over on top of the clouds. But you got to get up at like 3 a.m.
Maybe we'll do it, maybe not. And if we get to see it, great.
We could also just go for the sunset, apparently, too.
Either way.
All right, everybody, I'd love to hear from you on your thoughts on shared air in space and if you are as grumpy about it as we kind of got. But I think we ended on a real positive note and love to hear about anyone else's travels too. Thanks for listening and yet another Miosk episode. Winning. Until next time.
That's all for today's episode. Thanks for listening to The Sifu Mimi Chan Show. Please subscribe and rate my podcast on your platform of choice and leave a review. You can become a patron of the show at patreon.com/SifuMimiChan to help keep this podcast going. Follow me and interact on social media at Sifu Mimi Chan on Instagram or Facebook.